Yo, what's going on, guys? Warm here, and today I'm going to show you how to optimize Windows 10 for gaming and lower input latency. So let's just get right started. So some basic tweaks you can do is you can go to Settings, and you want to go to System, and I recommend disabling notifications unless you need notifications for a specific app. I recommend going to Power and Sleep, and go into additional power settings, and using a high performance power plan. I'm currently using GGOS, which is a custom Windows 10 build that is specifically made for gaming. So I'll link in the description a link to Flem's Discord server, which is GGOS, and I'll also link Adamx's Discord server and YouTube channel because most of the tweaks I got were from him and his pack, so all credit goes to those two. Um, so I'm plugged in turn off after never. For multitasking, I like to disable snap windows, disable all of this. Timeline, I'd turn that off. Um, for display, make sure that it says recommended what your display resolution is, because if it's not recommended, you're not using the same active resolution with your current display resolution, which means that you will not be getting exclusive full screen in games, which means you would have to put full screen in the Nvidia control panel, which I'll get to after. For privacy, I like to have camera off, microphone on, notifications off, account info off, contacts off, calendar off, email off, task off, radio off. A big one right here is background apps. I recommend completely turning this off because apps running in the background uses your resources, and it also lowers performance and uses up more RAM. So it even says right here, turning off background apps can help conserve power and also be used more towards what you're doing, like gaming or whatever you're working on. App diagnostics, completely turn that off. That's just for Microsoft to steal your information. Documents, I leave this off. Pictures, you can have that on if you want. Videos, you can have that on if you want. File systems, you can have that on if you want. So for apps, delete anything that you do not use, and anything that you feel like you don't need on your computer. In my download pack, I have a debloat Windows folder, which will delete anything that you can't delete, like the Windows Store. Xbox Game Bar, I don't think you can delete. So I'll get to that. Startup, disable anything you don't need starting up your computer, because that's just user resources right off the bat. So I only have one thing running, and it is the Java update scheduler, which I just use for Minecraft, so it automatically updates to Java. For gaming, I have game bar off, completely off. I also have a reg that will disable game bar and will enable full screen exclusive. So for game mode, I leave this off, but you can test with on or off, but I currently use it off because that's default on GGOS. Oh, and also if you want, you can go to graphics settings, hardware accelerate GPU scaling. If you have this, if you're using 20H2, I recommend having this on. Keep this off. Graphics performance preference isn't really help, it's just mostly placebo, but I have that off. So personalization, I recommend having a solid background since there's no like animations running on your computer, which is using up more resources. So I usually just leave a black background, and I kind of like it. Transparency effect, always leave that off. Taskbar, I have all this off except lock the taskbar because I don't want to move the taskbar around. Start, I have all this off because I disabled Windows Start. I could use OpenShell, but I don't. So I think that's good for the settings part. You can also go to devices, mouse. I recommend going to a visual mouse settings. Go into pointer option and disable and enhance pointer precision. And I recommend putting this to fast. Double click speed. You don't have to, but I just recommend it. If it doesn't work well for you, you can always go back to it and put that to the normal, which is I think 6 ticks. I think. I have all this off. USB, I have this on, so just in case there's a USB going in, I already know it is. I have autoplay off. What else I can do is I go to search. I have index disabled, so. But I'm gonna go to my download folder. Remember, this credit goes to Adamx, Flem, and Hand. They're great people, and I think you should check out their channel and Discord in the description. So I'm gonna go to control panel. I have activate Windows. If you don't have this is for Windows 10 Pro, this will activate it if you open up this command prompt and copy this into the CMD. This is against um, Windows terms of service though, so keep this with caution. Change sound settings. I have everything disabled except my headphones because I use this as my microphone and my headphones. I disabled all enhancements, turned off spectral sound, and don't have exclusive mode on. I just leave this how it is right now. Like I already talked about, mouse acceleration, be sure to turn that off. I don't know if this helps, but since I'm using GGOS, I don't run any weird files. This isn't weird, but it's better if you use this on regular Windows instead of a custom Windows build. Performance option, I keep this on best performance so I can get the best performance, but if you use best performance, I recommend pressing smooth edges of screen fonts and show show content while you're moving the stuff, but I just always leave it off just so I can get a slightly better performance, which probably won't help at all, but you know. Custom resolution utility is for if you want to stretch resolution. I'll get into a video of this, but basically you want to uncheck all this, so press none, go here, edit, edit, copy, okay, and then delete all, but I'm not going through that because I'm not trying to like change my resolution right now. Debloat Windows, which I was talking about. If you want to do a safe method, just right click on it. So let's say if you wanted to uninstall Paint or People, which I already have uninstalled, but you would right click on any of these and press Run with PowerShell, and it will delete it. And you can check by going to Uninstall Apps, and if it's not there, then you successfully deleted the app. And before doing all these tweaks, I recommend disabling Windows updates. I don't have a guide on that right now, but I'll put a guide out which will tell you how to disable Windows updates and all that. And you want to disable useless services. So if you don't use Xbox services, you can disable that. So just drag it onto Power Run, press yes, and then OK, and do that for everything else. Bluetooth, extra unnecessary services, telemetry, disable anti-malware service. So when you disable this, it'll use a lot less RAM on your computer. But if you're scared of getting a virus, then I recommend downloading Malwarebytes, which is a pretty good software that will protect you from viruses and scan your computer. Because if you have any viruses on your computer that can slow it down and just harm your computer and make gaming worse, and it'll probably lower your FPS. I have some useful programs such as 7-zip to extract files, TCP optimizer for networks, Visual C++, Rufus if you want to install GGOS, Brave browser, which I use, which is in my opinion the best browser to use. Auto runs, don't really use this unless you know what you're doing, but I like to go to logon and disable anything that I don't use, like the Brave installer, the Microsoft security. But just please don't mess with anything in here if you don't know what you're doing, because you can break your system and would have to reinstall. Other things you can do is, I'll add more to this folder, but I have enabled full screen exclusive and disable game bar. If you don't use game bar, click on this. I have enable or disable idle. When you enable idle, that will lower your temps, but it might increase the input latency by a little bit, but you'll get more frames, I think. And if you disable it, you'll get lower input latency, but you might get less frames. And it states in this file, text file by hand. So, oh, and I also have mouse data queue size 15 and keyboard data queue size 10. I don't really recommend using these because they're very low values, and if you don't have the best computer, this can stop your keyboard and mouse from working. So please don't use these unless you really know your PC's good. But yeah, and this is my Win32 separation priority that I use. It's the best for me, but like you want to test out different values. Um, and I don't know if I said this, but I use disable idle. It'll show up in Task Manager if I go to it real quick that I have 100% CPU or 99, but it's not really that. It just says it. But with this, this can improve FPS and lower input latency, but you want to test each value because what might be best for me might not be the best for you. So you would want to go to post setup. There's some other stuff in here that is similar to what I have, but this was from HandOS, so I don't really need that right now, so I'm just going to go delete, but because most of this is here and I'll make it easier for you guys. If you want to go to GPU tweaks, press on this, and this is where I'll tell you the best GPU settings to use. I recommend using display driver uninstaller first to uninstall your current driver. And so what you would do here is you would have to press select device type GPU and then press clean and restart, which I'm not going to do that now because I'm not trying to reinstall. But once it does that, your screen will go back to 60 Hertz. But don't worry about that because then you'll have to find a GPU driver to use, which I use GPU driver stripped, which is NV clean installed, and you have to press manually select a driver. In my opinion, the best is 457.30, but like I said before, test different drivers, but a lot of people like 457.30, and just go through the process of what it's saying, and I'll leave a image in the folder which will show the best setting to use when it talks about, see if I can get to it real quick. Oh, I don't need this right now, but I'll leave it in the folder. Once you do that, press unhide silk smooth this, and you want to go to Nvidia profile inspector, and you want to drag the Adamx optimized profile to the profile inspector, and then once it shows up the things loading, press OK, apply changes, and after you do this, go to your Nvidia control panel. So manage 3D settings. I'll show you the best settings to use. So have all of this off, but test low latency mode. I have it on ultra, but test on, off, and ultra and see what's the best for you. G-Sync, you can have that on or off. I like it off, but for the video, I'll leave it on. Silk smoothness, keep this on off for the best performance. Thread optimization, test with that, but I have it on. And V-Sync, keep that off. And I'll apply that. And you want to go to adjust desktop size and position. And if you're not using a stretch res, keep it on no scaling. Or if you're using a stretch res with custom resolution utility, keep it on no scaling. But you're using a stretch res with the Nvidia control panel, put it on aspect ratio or full screen. And uncheck override the scaling mode and make sure you're displaying on your display. Because display scale is always better than GPU scale in most cases. G-Sync, I have that on right now. What I like to do for colors is I have digital vibrance on 70 because it's easier to see players, and on top of that is also it just makes it look more brighter and more pops out, like makes Windows pop out more. Go to change resolution and scroll down to PC and then press your highest refresh rate and resolution available, and make sure this is set to the highest refresh rate, which I have 240 Hertz. So I put 240. If you have 144, make sure to press 140. If you have 240, 240, and if you have 60, just put it on 60. And yeah, so on. And I recommend using DisplayPort because if you have a 240 Hz monitor, most of the time 240 Hz only works on display. DisplayPort and not HDMI. So use a DisplayPort. And also, I think DisplayPort has less input latency than HDMI. So I have for configure surround and PhysX, I keep this on my GPU. And for manage developer options, you want to press desktop and you want to press enable developer, and that will give you the option of this, and press allow access to GPU. I don't think that does anything, it's just placebo, but just press it. It'll go black for a bit and it'll go right to this screen and it'll be applied. Some other things you can do is you can clean up your desktop. So if you just want to like drag a file into the trash, just clean it up. Some other things is that you can go to cleanup and you can just say, because I'm having this in the folder also, so press temporary files, delete it, delete the log files, because this is using up space on your computer, and the more space it's using up, the less space you have to like use on your own. But I don't really recommend putting a lot of stuff on the SSD. Put it more on your hard drive. Due to the fact that having it on your SSD will just take up more space, and on your hard drive it won't really be used as much since the SSD is more for gaming. You could put like video clips on the hard drive, because currently I have a 500 gigabyte SSD and a 1 terabyte hard drive. Some other things you can do is if you go to like a game, let's say like Minecraft, click properties, go to compatibility, change setting for all users, and you should disable full screen optimization and change high DPI and override the scaling mode set by application. This is for most games, but for other games you have to put percent app data. Oh, actually no, you would have to go to your drive, C drive. This is for Fortnite program files, Epic Games, Fortnite game, binaries 164. These four, press properties, and you can do the same thing that I just did with Minecraft. Some other things I think I have is MSI Afterburner. Um, if you know what to do, if you've seen videos on MSI Afterburner, then use it. But I'm gonna give you a warning: if you set your core clock too high, then it can crash your computer. It won't cause any damage because it'll reset back, but I think you have to go into safe mode because this happened to me before. I put it too high and it crashed my computer. And memory clock, the same thing. So I'll make a video on overclocking. So if you don't know how to do it yet, I don't recommend trying it out. What I do recommend is putting your power limit on max and temp limit on max and change the fan speed to whatever you want. I currently have 100% because I like that. And you would want to press save, set a profile, put startup, and close it, and just press the save. So I also recommend if you go to like Brave or Discord, go to your settings and scroll down till you see additional settings. I recommend disabling hardware acceleration and not having it continue to run in the background. And talking about input latency in FPS, I recommend having Nvidia Reflex on plus boost if whatever game supports it. Put it on plus boost since that matches your GPU. I'm not really 100% sure, but it just lowers the input latency. Um, some other things you can do is in BIOS you should enable XMP, which I'll show you real quick. So basically, XMP is it boosts your memory clock for your RAM, which I have the same motherboard, the same motherboard as this, and I have to press XMP and it'll enable it. So I'll just link this photo in the description. If you have a MSI motherboard, because I have the MSI B450 Tomahawk Max. And if you want enable game boost, this will overclock your CPU, your GPU slightly, and your RAM. Make sure to put low settings for games, and also put your games in full screen mode because full screen will give the most FPS. And if you're struggling for FPS, just put like a lower resolution. Currently, I use 1080p. I used to use 720p, but I noticed that I just don't. I'd rather have the higher refresh rate, not 4K or 1440p, but 1080p, just because it looks nicer and I already get a good amount of frames. So, I think I covered what I needed to cover in this video. I'll be back next time, and I'll talk about how to. Oh, and also I forgot. For dual channel RAM, you want to put your RAM in the correct motherboard, like the correct slots on your motherboard. So if you have two sticks of RAM that's dual channel RAM, put it in the correct slot, like 2 and 4 or 1 and 3. Don't put them right next to each other because you're not going to get the benefit. So I recommend at least 16 apps, 8 gigabytes of RAM, but if you have the money, get at least 16. But yeah, I'll go through more in the future, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.